I would like to stand by the sea. It is there. I have many times. It's something I cared for. I've done it. I'll stand on the beach. On the beach, well, it was very fresh, but it was hot in the dunes. But it was so fresh on the shore, I loved it very much. Lots of people. People move so easily, men move. I walked from the dune to the shore. My man slept in the dune. He turned over as I stood, his eyelashes, belly button, snoozing. How lovely. Would you like a child, I said. Babies of our own would be nice. Women turn, look at me. Our own child, would you like that? Two women looked at me, turned and stared. No. I was walking, they were still, I turned. Why do you look? I didn't say that, I stared, then I was looking at them. I am beautiful. I walked back over the sand. He had turned, toes under sand, head resting in his arms.
Oh, the dog is gone. I didn't tell you. I had to shelter under a tree for 20 minutes yesterday because of a rain, I meant to tell you. With some youngsters, I didn't know them. Then it eased, downfall. I walked up as far as the pond, then I felt a couple of big drops. Luckily, I was only a few yards from the shelter. I sat down there. I meant to tell you. Do you remember the weather yesterday? That downfall.
He felt my shadow. He looked up at me, standing above him.
I should have had some bread with me. I could have fed the birds.
Sand on his arms.
They were hopping about, making a racket.
I lay down by him, not touching.
There wasn't anyone else in the shelter. There was a man and a woman under the trees on the other side of the pond. I didn't feel like getting wet. I stayed where I was. Yes, I've forgotten something. The dog was with me.
Did those women know me? I didn't remember their faces. I'd never seen those faces before. I'd never seen those women before, I'm certain of it. Why were they looking at me? There's nothing strange about me. There's nothing strange about the way I look. I look like anyone.
The dog wouldn't have minded my feeding the birds. Anyway, as soon as we got to shelter, he fell asleep. But even if he'd been awake.
They all held my arm lightly as I stepped out of the car, or down the steps, or out the door without exception. If they touched the back of my neck or my hand, it was done so lightly, without exception. With one exception.
Mind you, there was a lot of shit all over the place. All on the paths, by the pond, dog shit, duck shit. All kinds of shit all on the paths. The rain didn't clean it up and made it even more treacherous. The ducks were well away right over in their island. I wouldn't have fed them anyway. I would have fed the sparrows.
I could stand now. I dress differently, but I am beautiful.
You should have a walk with me one afternoon down to the pond, bring some bread. There's nothing to stop you. I sometimes run into one or two people I know. You might remember them.
When I watered the flowers, he followed me and watched me, standing from a distance. My gravity, he said. I was so grave tending to the flowers. I'm going to water and arrange the flowers, I said. He followed me and stood watching at a distance, and when the arrangement was done, I stayed still. I heard him moving. He didn't touch me. I listened. Then he touched me. He touched the back of my neck, his fingers lightly touching the back of my neck.
Funny thing was, when I looked, after the shower, the man and the woman under the trees on the other side of the pond had gone. There wasn't a soul in the park.
I wore my white beach robe. Underneath, I was naked. There wasn't a soul on the beach. Very far away, there was a man sitting on a breakwater. But even so, he was only a pinpoint in the sun. And even so, I could only see him when I was standing or moving from the shore to the dune. When I lay down, I couldn't see him. Therefore, he couldn't see me. Maybe I was mistaken. Perhaps the beach was empty. Perhaps there was no one there. He couldn't see my man. Anyway, he never stood up. Snoozing, how lovely, I said to him. But I wasn't a fool on that occasion. I lay quiet by his side.
Anyway.
My skin
I'm sleeping all right these days.
was stinging.
Every night, right through the night.
I'd been in the sea.
Maybe it has something to do with the fishing. Getting to learn more about fish.
Stinging in the sea by myself.
Very shy creatures. You have to woo them. You must never get excited with them or flirt. Never.
I knew there must be a hotel near where we could get some tea.
Anyway, luck was on my side for a change. By the time I got out of the park, the clubs were open. So, I thought I might as well pop in, have a pint. I wanted to tell you. I met some nut in there. First of all, I had a word with the landlord. He knows me. Then this nut came in. He ordered a pint, and then he made a criticism of the beer. I had no patience with it.
But then I thought, perhaps the hotel bar will be open. We'll sit in the bar, he'll order me a drink. What will I order? What will he want? What will he order? I shall hear him say it. I shall hear his voice. He will ask me what I would like first. Then he will order the two drinks. I shall hear him do it.
This beer is piss, he said. Undrinkable. There's nothing wrong with the beer, I said. Yes, there is, he said. I just told you what was wrong with it. Well, it's the best beer in the area, I said. No, he said. It's piss. Well, the landlord picked up the mug and a sip. It's good beer, said the landlord. No, said this chap, someone has made a mistake. Someone has used this pint pot instead of the bar hole. The landlord threw a $50 down the bar and told him to take it. The man said, this beer is 3 and 2. I owe you 3 I ain't got the change. Well, give the 3 to your son, said the landlord with my compliments. I ain't got a son, said the man. I've never had any children. Probably never even been married, said the landlord. I'm not married, man asked the landlord and me to have a drink with him. Landlord said he'd have a pint. I didn't say anything at first, but then the man came over to me, have one with me, have one with me. Then he put down a 10-pound note. He said he'll have a pint as well.
Suddenly I stood, I walked to the shore and into the water. I didn't swim, I don't swim. I let the water billow me. I rested in the water. The waves were very light, delicate. They touched the back of my neck.
One day when the weather's good, you can go out into the yard, sit down. Like that, the open air. I'm often down there, the dog liked it. I put in some flowers. He found that pleasant. Looking at flowers, you can cut a few, bring them in. No one will see you, there's no one there. It's where we're lucky, in my opinion, to be living in Mr. Sykes' house in peace, no one to bother us.
I've thought about inviting one or two people I know from the village in for a drink once or twice, but I decided against it. It's not necessary. You know what you get quite a lot of in the garden? Butterflies.
I slipped out of my costume and put my robe on. Underneath, I was naked. There wasn't a soul on the beach, except an elderly man sitting in a breakwater far away. I lay down next to him and I whispered, "Would you like a baby? A child of our own would be nice."
What'd you think of that downfall? Of course, the youngsters I met under the first tree during the first shower, they were larking about, laughing. I tried to listen to find out what they were laughing about, but I couldn't make it out. They were whispering. I tried to listen to find out what the joke was. Anyway, I didn't find out.
I was thinking, when you were young, you didn't laugh much. You were grave.
That's why he picked such a desolate place, so that I could draw in peace. I had my sketchbook with me. I took it out. I took my drawing pencil out. But there wasn't a thing to draw, only the beach, the sea. Could have drawn him. He didn't want it, he laughed. I laughed with him. I waited for him to laugh, and I would turn. He would touch my back, turn me to him. My nose creased. I laughed a little with him. He laughed. I'm sure of it, so I didn't draw him.
You were a first-rate housekeeper when you were young, weren't you? Was very proud. You never made a fuss. You never got into a state. You went about your work. He could rely on you. He did. He trusted you to run his house, to keep the house up to the mark. No panic.
Do you remember when I took him on that trip to the north, that long trip when we got back? He thanked you for looking after the place so well, everything running like clockwork. You missed me. When I walked into this room, you stopped still. I had to walk all the way across the floor towards you. I touched you.
But I had something to say to you, didn't I? I waited. I didn't say it then, but I had made up my mind to say it. I decided I would say it, and I did say it, didn't I, the next day? I told you I had let you down. I had been unfaithful to you. You didn't cry. We had a few hours off. We took a walk up to the pond with the dog. We stood under the trees for a bit. I couldn't figure out why you brought that carrier bag. Finally, I asked you, I said, "What's in the bag?" It turned out to be bread. You fed the ducks. We stood under the trees, looked out over the pond. When we got back into this room, you put your hands on my face and you kissed me.
But I really didn't want to drink. I drew a face in the sand and a body. The body of a woman and a body of a man, close, not touching. But they didn't look like anything. They didn't look like human figures. The sand kept slipping, mixing their contours. I crept close to him and put my head on his arm and shut my eyes. All those darting red and black flecks moving about under my eyelid. I moved my cheek on his skin, and all those darting red and black flecks under my eyelid. I buried my face in his side, and I shut the light out.
Mr. Sykes took to us from the very first interview. Jimmy! He said, I have a feeling you'll make a very good team. Do you remember? That's what we proved to be, no question. I shined his shoes well, I drove well, I earned my keep. I could turn my hand to anything. He never lacked for anything in the way of being looked after. Mind you, he was a gloomy bugger. I never felt sorry for him at any time for his lonely life. That nice blue dress he chose for you for the house, that was very nice. Of course, it was in his own interest for you to look good around the house. For guests.
He moved in the sand and put his arms around me.
Do you like for me to talk to you? Do you like for me to tell you about all the things I've been doing? About all the things I've been thinking? I think you do.
And cuddled me.
Of course, it was in his own interest to see that you were attractively dressed around the house, to make a good impression on his guests.
I caught a bus to the crossroad and walked down the lane by an old church. It was very quiet, except for birds. There was an old man fiddling about on a cricket pitch bending. I stood out of the sun under a tree. I heard the car. He saw me and stopped me. I stayed still. Then the car moved again, came towards me slowly. I moved around the front of it in the dust. I couldn't see him for the sun, but he was watching me. When I got to the door, it was locked. I looked through at him. He leaned over, opened the door. I got in, sat beside him. He smiled at me. And then he reversed all in one movement, very quickly, quite straight, up the crossroads, and we drove to the sea.
We're the envy of a lot of people, you know, living in this house. Having this house all to ourselves, it's too big for two people.
He said he knew of a very desolate beach that no one else in the world knew, and that's where we were going.
I was very gentle to you. I was kind to you that day. I knew you'd had a shock, so I was gentle to you. I took your arm on the way back from the pond. When we got into this house, into this room, you put your hands on my face and you kissed me.
All the food I had in my bag, I had cooked myself, or prepared myself. I baked the bread myself.
The girl herself I considered unimportant. I didn't think it was necessary to go into the details. I decided against it.
The windows were open, but we left the hood up.
Mr. Sykes gave a little dinner party that Friday. He complimented you on your cooking, on the service. Two women, that was all, never seen them before. Probably his mother and sister. I was in bed. They wanted coffee late. I fell asleep. I could have come down to the kitchen to give you a hand, but I was too tired. But I woke up when you got into the bed. You were out on your feet. You fell asleep as soon as you hit the pillow. Your body just fell back.
He was right. It was desolate. There wasn't a soul on the beach.
I had a look over the house the other day, I need to tell you. The dust is bad. We'll have to polish it up. We'll go up to the drawing room, open the window, At least now I can walk down to the pub in peace. I can walk up to the pond in peace with no one to nag the shit out of me.
All it is, you see, I said, was the lightness of your touch, the lightness of your look, my neck, your eyes. Silence. That is my meaning. The loveliness of my flowers, my hands touching my flowers, that is my meaning. I've watched other people, I've seen them. All the cars zooming by, men with girls at their sides, bouncing up and down. Their dolls, they squeak. All the people were squeaking at the hotel. The girls had long hair, they were smiling.
That's what matters. Anyway, we're together. That's what matters.
But I was up early. There was still plenty to be done and cleared up. I put the plates in the sink to soak. They had soaked overnight. They were easy to wash. The dog was up. He followed me. Misty morning comes from the river.
This fella knew bugger all about beer. He didn't know. I'd been trained as a cellarman. That's why I could speak with authority.
I opened the door and went out. There was no one about. The sun was shining, wet. I mean, wetness all over the ground.
Cellarman is the man responsible. He's the earliest up in the morning. Give the drayman a hand with the barrels. Down the slide, through the cellar flaps, lower them down by rope, onto the racks, rock them on the belly, put a rim up them, use balance and leverage, hike them up onto the racks.
Still misty, but thinner, thinning.
The bong is on the vertical. In the bong hole, spile the bong. Hammer the spile to the center of the bong. This lets the beer breathe.
Wetness all in the air, sunny, trees like feathers.
And then you hammer the tap in.
I wore my blue dress.
Let it stand for 3 days. Keep wet sacks over the barrels. Hose the cellar floor daily. Hose the barrels daily.
It was a beautiful autumn morning.
Run water through the pipes to the bar pumps daily.
I stood in the mist.
Pull off, stop pulling just before you get to the dregs. The dregs will give you the shits. You got an olive barrel. Feed your slops back to the olive barrel and send them back to the brewery.
In the sun.
Dip the barrels daily with a brass rod. Know your gallonage. Chalk it up. Then you're tidy. Then you never caught short.
Then I went back to the kitchen and sat down.
Jeff in the pub said he was surprised to hear it. Said he was surprised to hear about hosing the cellar floor. He said he doesn't know cellars in a thermostatically controlled cooling unit. He said he thought that keg beer was fed with oxygen through a cylinder. I said I wasn't talking about keg beer. I was talking about normal draft beer. He said he thought that they packed the beer from a tanker into metal containers. Well, I said, well, they may do, but he wasn't talking about the same quality of beer that I was. He accepted that.
The dog sat beside me. I stroked him. Through the window, I could see down into the valley. I saw the children in the valley. They were running through the grass. They ran up the hill.
I never saw your face. You were standing by the windows on one of those black nights of downfall. All I could hear was the rain on the glass smacking in the glass. You knew I'd come into the room. I stood close to you, but you didn't move. What are you doing here? We're going back outside! I could just see your shape, your reflection in the windows. There must have been some kind of light somewhere. Perhaps you were just, your face shining lighter than the rest. I stood close to you. Perhaps you were just thinking in a dream without touching you. I could feel your body.
I remembered always in drawing the basic principles of light and shadow. Objects intersecting light causes shadows. Shadow is the deprivation of the light. The shape of the shadow is determined by that of the object, but not always. Not always directly. Sometimes it is only indirectly affected by it. Sometimes the cause of the shadow cannot be found, but I have always bore in mind the basic principles of drawing so that I never lost track or heart.
You used to wear a chain around your waist, and on the chain you carried your keys, your thimble, your notebook, your pencil, your scissors. You stood in the hall and you banged a gong. What the bloody hell are you doing banging a bloody gong? It's bullshit! Standing in an empty hall banging a bloody gong. There's no one to listen, no one to hear. There's not a soul in the house but me. There's nothing for lunch, nothing's cooked. No stew, no pie, no greens, no joint. Fuck off!
So that I never lost track, even when I asked him to turn and look at me, and he turned to look at me, but I couldn't see his look. I couldn't tell whether he was looking at me or not, although he had turned and appeared to be looking at me.
I took the chain off and the keys, the thimble, the scissors slid off and clattered down and booted the gong down the hall. The dog came in. I thought you would come to me. I thought you would come into my arms and kiss me, even offer yourself to me, and I would have had you in front of the dog. Like a man in the hall on the stone, banging the gong. Minds don't get the scissors up your ass or the thimble. Don't worry, I'll throw them for the dog to chase. And you'll play with the thimble between your paws. And now you'll plead with me like a woman. And I'll bang the gong on the floor. And if it's too flat, like some resonance, I'll hang it back up in the hook and I'll bang you against it, swinging, gonging, waking the place up, calling them all for dinner, lunches up, bring up the bacon, bang your lovely head. Mind the dog doesn't swallow the thimble. Swear!
He lay above me, looking down at me. He supported my shoulder. So tender, his touch on my neck. So softly, his kiss on my cheek. My hand on his ribs. So sweetly, the sand over me. Tiny the sand on my skin. So silent, the sky in my eyes. Gently, the sound of the tide. Oh, my true love, I said.
I walk with my girl who wears her gray blouse when she walks, and gray shoes, and walks with me readily, wearing her clothes consider for me her gray clothes. She holds my arm. On good evenings we walk through the hills to the top of the hill, past the docks, the clouds racing. Just before dark, or as dark is fallen, when the moon. When it's chilly, I stop her and slip her raincoat over her shoulders. Or rainy, slip arms into the arms. She twisting her arms, and talk to her and tell her everything. She dressed for my eyes. I tell her my thoughts. Now I'm ready to walk. Her arm in me, her hand in me. I tell her my lies, thoughts, clouds racing. She looks up at me or listens, looking down. She stops in mid-sentence, my sentence, to look up at me. Sometimes her hand has slipped from mine. Her arm loosened. She walks slightly apart. Dog barks.
There are two. One who is with me sometimes, and another. He listens to me. I tell him what I know. We walk by the dogs. Sometimes the wind is so high he does not hear me. I lead him to a tree, clasp closely to him, whisper to him, wind going, dogs stop, and he hears me. But the other hears me.
Caught a bus to the town. Crowd. Lights around the market, rain, stinking. I showed her the bumping lights. Took her down around the dumps, black roads and girders. She with me clutching. This way, the way I bring you. Hubs through their doors, smack into the night. Cars barking in the lights, and she with me clutching. Brought her into this place. My cousin runs it. Undressed her, placed my hand.
I go by myself with the milk to the top, the clouds racing, all the blue changes. I'm dizzy sometimes. Meet with him under some place. One time visited his house. He put a light on. It reflected the window. It reflected in the window.
She walks from the door to the window to see the way she has come. To confirm that the house, which grew nearer, is the same one she stands in. That the path and the bushes are the same, that the gate is the same. When I stand beside her and smile at her, she looks at me and smiles.
How many times standing clenched in the pissing dark, waiting? The mud, the cows, the river. You cross the field out of darkness. You arrive. You stand breathing before me. You smile. I put my hands on your shoulders and press. Press the smile off your face.
There are two. I turn to them and speak. I look them in their eyes. I kiss them there and say. I look away to smile and touch them as I turn.
I watch the clouds, pleasant, the reeds and tendons of cloud. I've lost nothing, pleasant, alone, and watch the folding light. My animals are quiet. My heart never bangs. I read in the evenings. There is no one to tell me what is expected or not expected of me. There is nothing required of me.
I'm at my last gasp with this unendurable racket. I kicked the door open and stood before them. Someone called me Granddad and told me to button it. Well, they should button it right young. One of them told me that I was lucky to be alive, that I would have to bear it in order to pay for being alive, in order to give thanks for being alive. It's a question of sleep. I need something of it, or how can I remain alive without any true rest, having no solace, no constant solace, not even any damn inconstant solace. I am strong, but not as strong as the bastards in the other room, and their tittering bitches, and their music, and their love. If I changed my life, perhaps, and lived deliberately at night, and slept in the day, what exactly would I do? What can be meant by living in the dark?
Now and again, I meet my drinking companion and have a drink with her. She is a friendly woman, quite elderly, quite friendly. But she knows little of me. She could never know much of me, not really, not now. She's funny. She starts talking sexily to me in the corner with our drinks. I laugh. She asks me about my early life when I was young, never departing from her chosen subject. But I have nothing to tell her about the sexual part of my youth. I'm old, I tell her. My youth was somewhere else anyway, I don't remember. She does the talking anyway. I like to get back to my room. It has a pleasant view. I have one or two friends, ladies. They ask me where I come from. I say, of course, from the country. I don't see much of them. I sometimes wonder if I think. I heard somewhere about how many thoughts go through the brain of a person, but I couldn't remember anything I'd actually thought for some time. Oh, it isn't something anyone could ever tell me about, could reassure me about. Nobody could tell from looking at me what was happening. But I'm still quite pretty, really. Quite nice eyes, nice skin.
Will we meet tonight?
I don't know.
Come with me tonight.
Where?
Anywhere. For a walk.
I don't want to walk.
Why not?
I want to go somewhere else.
Where?
I don't know.
What's wrong with a walk?
I don't want to walk.
Well, what do you want to do?
I don't know.
You want to go anywhere else?
Yes.
Where?
I don't know.
You want me to buy you a drink?
No.
Come for a walk.
No.
All right. I'll take you on a bus to the town. I know a place. My cousin runs it.
No.
furiously hot. Sitting weather, I call it. The weather just sits, doesn't move. Unusual. I shall walk down to my horse and see how my horse is. Perhaps he doesn't need me. My visit, my care, will be like any other visit, any other care. Can't believe it.
I walk in my mind, but I can't get out of the walls into a wind. Meadows are walled, and lakes. The sky's a wall. Once, I had a little girl. I took it for walks, and I held it by its hand. It looked up at me and said, "I see something in a tree. A shape. A shadow. It is leaning down. It is looking at us. Maybe it's a bird," I said. "A big bird resting. Birds grow tired after they've flown over the countryside. Up and down in the wind, looking down on all the sights. So, sometimes, when they reach a tree with good, solid branches, they rest."
When I run over the grass.
She floats. Under me, floating. Under me.
I turn, I wheel, I glide, I wheel. In stunning light, the horizon moves from the sun. I am crushed by the light.
Sometimes I see people. They walk towards me. No. Not so. Walk in my direction, but never reaching me. Turning left or disappearing, then reappearing to disappear into the woods. So many ways to lose sight of them, then to recapture sight of them. They are sharp at first sight, then smudge, then lost, then glimpse again. Thank God.
Funny, sometimes I press my hand to my forehead calmingly, and I feel all the strain out. So let it go, feel the grit slip away. Funny moment then. Calm moment.
It's changed. You painted it. You made shells, everything. It's beautiful.
Can you remember when you were here last?
Oh, yes.
You were a little girl.
I was.
Can you cook now?
Shall I cook for you?
Yes.
Next time I come, I will.
Do you like music?
Yes.
I'll play you music. Look at your reflection.
Where?
In the window.
It's very dark outside.
It's high up.
Does it get darker the higher you get?
No.
Around me sits the night. Such a silence. I can hear myself. Cut my ear. My heart beats in my ear. Such a silence. Is it me? Am I silent or speaking? How can I know? Can I know such things? No one has ever told me. I need to be told things. I seem to be old. Am I old now? No one will tell me. I must find a person to tell me these things.
My landlady asked me in for a drink. Stupid conversation. Why are you living here? Why do you live alone? Where do you come from? What do you do with yourself? What kind of life have you had? You seem fit, a bit grumpy. You can smile surely at something. Surely you have smiled at a thing in your life, at something. Has there been no kind of loveliness in your life, no pleasantness? Are you nothing but a childish old man suffocating himself? I've had all that. I've got all that. I said.
He sat me on his knee by the window and asked if he could kiss my right cheek. I nodded he could. He did. He then asked if, having kissed my right cheek, he could do the same with my left. I said yes. He did.
She was looking down. I couldn't hear what she said. I can't hear you. Yes, you can, I said. What are you saying? Look at me, she said. I didn't hear you, she said. I didn't hear what you said. But I'm looking at you. It's your head that's bent. The little girl looked up at me. I said, at night, horses are quite happy. They stand about. Then, after a bit of time, they go to sleep. In the morning, they wake up, snort a bit, canter sometimes, and eat. You've no cause to worry about them.
Find a young man.
There are they.
Don't be stupid.
I don't like them.
You are stupid.
I hate them.
Find one.
For instance, I said, those shapes in the trees, you'll find that they're just birds resting after a long journey.
I go up with the milk. The sky hits me. I walk in this wind to collide with them waiting. There are two. They halt to laugh and bellow in the yard. They dig and punch and cackle where they stand. They turn to move, look round at me to grin. I turn my eyes from one and from the other to him.
From the young people's room, silence, sleep, tender love. It's of no importance.
I walk with my girl who wears...
Caught a bus to the town. Crowds. Lights round.
After my work each day, I walk back through crowds of people, but I don't notice them. Oh, I'm not in a dream or anything of that sort. On the contrary, I'm quite wide awake to the world around me, but not to the people. Well, I'm sure there must be something in them to notice, something to pay attention to, something of interest. In fact, I know there is, I'm certain of it. But I pass through them noticing nothing. It is only later in my room that I remember. Oh yes, I remember. But I'm never sure if what I remember is of today, or of yesterday, or of a long time ago. And then often it's only half things I remember, half things, beginnings of things. My drinking companion, for the 100th time, asked me if I'd ever been married. This time I told her I had. Yes, I told her I had. Certainly, I can remember the wedding.
On good evenings we walk through the hills to the top of the hill, past the dogs, the clouds racing.
Sometimes the wind is so high he does not hear me.
Brought her into this place. My cousin runs it.
All the blue changes, I'm dizzy sometimes.
That the path and the bushes are the same, that the gate is the same.
You cross the field out of darkness, you arrive.
I turn to them and speak.
I watch the folding line.
And their tittering bitches, and their music, and their love.
They ask me where I come from. I say, of course, from the country.
Come with me tonight.
Where?
Anywhere. For a walk.
My visit, my care, will be like any other visit, any other care.
I see something in a tree. A shape. A shadow.
When I run,
Floating under me.
the horizon moves from the sun.
They are sharp at first sight, then smudged, then lost, then gleams again, then gone.
You'll all the dust rain out. Let it go. Let the grit slip away.
I look them in their eyes.
It's high high.
Does it get darker the higher you get?
No.
Around me sits the night. Such a silence.
I've had all that. I've got all that, I said.
I nodded he could.
She was looking down.
Yes, you can, I said.
What are you saying?
I didn't hear you, she said.
But I'm looking at you. It's your head that's bent.
In the morning, they wake up, snort a bit, canter, sometimes, and eat.
There aren't any.
Don't be stupid.
I don't like them.
You are stupid.
For instance, the shapes in the trees.
I walk in this wind to collide with them waiting.
Sleep, tender love, It's of no importance.
I kiss them where I say.
I walk.
Caught a bus.
Certainly. I can remember the wedding.
I walk with my girl who wears a gray blouse.
Caught a bus to the town. Right. Lights round the market.
By the river.
What time?
The first time on the bridge. Starting on the bridge.
I can't remember.
On the bridge. We stopped and looked down at the river. It was night. There were lads asleep on the topaz. We were alone and we looked at the river. I put my hand on the small of your waist. Don't you remember I put my hand under your coat?
Was it winter?
Of course it was winter. It was when we met. It was our first walk. You must remember that.
I remember walking. I remember walking with you.
The first time. Our first walk.
Yes, of course I remember that. We walked down a road into a field through some railings. We went to the corner of the field and stood at the railings.
No! It was on a bridge that we stopped.
That was someone else.
Rubbish.
Another girl.
It was years ago. You just forgotten. I still remember the lines on the water.
You took my face in your hands by the railings. You were very gentle. You were very caring. You cared. Your eyes searched my face. I wondered who you were. I wondered what you thought. Oh, I wondered what you'd do.
Well, do you agree that we met at the party, huh? Do you agree with that?
What was that?
What?
I thought I heard a child crying.
There was no sound.
I thought I heard a child crying. Waking up.
The house is silent. It is late. We are sitting here. We should be in bed. I have to be up early. I have things to do. Why do you argue?
I don't. I'm not. I have things to do. I'm willing to go to bed. I have to get up in the morning.
A man called Doughty gave the party. You knew him. I had met him. I knew his wife. I met you there. You were standing by the window, and I smiled at you, and to my surprise, you smiled back. You like me. I was amazed. You found me attractive later, you told me. You liked my eyes.
You liked mine. You touched my hand. You wanted to know who I was and what I was, and whether I was aware of the fact that your hand was touching mine, that your fingers were touching mine, that your fingers were moving up and down between mine.
No, it wasn't a bridge that we stopped. And I stood behind you, and I put my hand on the small of your waist, and your coat. You felt my hand on you.
We were at a party given by the daughters. You knew his wife. She looked at you dearly as if to say you were her dear. She seemed to love you. I didn't. Oh, I didn't know you. They had a lovely house by a river. I went to get my coat, leaving you waiting. You had offered to escort me. I thought you were quite courtly, quite courteous, pleasantly mannered, quite caring. I slipped on my coat, and I looked down through the window knowing that you were waiting. I looked over the garden to the river, and I saw the lamplight on the water. I joined you, and we walked down a road, through some railings, into a field. There must have been a park of some kind. Later we found your car, you drove me.
And then I touched your breasts.
Where?
On the bridge. I felt your breasts.
Really?
Standing behind you.
Oh, I wondered if you would. Or whether you wanted to, if you would. I wondered how you were going to go about it.
Yes.
Whether you wanted to sufficiently.
Then I put my hands under your sweater, and I undid your brassiere, and I felt your breasts.
Another night, perhaps. Another girl.
You don't remember my fingers on your skin?
Were they in your hands? My breasts. Fully in your hands.
You don't remember my hands on your skin?
Standing behind me?
Yes!
But the railings were behind me. I got the railings in my back. You were facing me. I was looking into your eyes. My coat was closed. It was cold.
I undid your coat.
It was late. Chilly.
And then we left the bridge. We walked on the towpath, and we came to a rubbish dump.
And you had me. And you told me you had fallen in love with me, and that you would take care of me always, and that my voice and my eyes and my thighs and my breasts were incomparable. And that you would adore me always.
Yes, I did.
And you do adore me always.
Yes, I do.
Oh, and then we had children, and we sat and we talked. And you remembered women on bridges and towpaths and rubbish dumps.
And you remember your bottom against the railings, and men holding your hands, and men looking into your eyes.
And speaking softly to me.
And your soft voice talking to them softly at night.
And they said, I will adore you always.
Saying, I will adore you always.
No good trying to make me happy. It'll set you
halfway man, 'cause I won't feel no better till I'm finished being sad. How could people so good feel bad?
It's high up.
Does it get darker the higher you get?
No.
Around me.
Down.
Got all that, I said.
I nodded he could.
She was looking down.
Yes, you can.
She was looking down.
Yes, you. I said.
What are you saying?
I didn't hear you. She said. Yes, you can. I said.
What are you saying?
I didn't hear you. She said.
But I'm looking at you. It's your head that's bent.
In the morning, they wake up, snort a bit, canter sometimes, and eat.
There aren't any.
Don't be stupid.
I don't like them.
You are stupid.
For instance, the shapes in the trees.
I walk in this wind to collide with them waiting.
Sleep, tender love, it's of no importance.
I kiss them there, I say.
I walk.
Caught a bus.
Certainly.
Caught a bus.
the wedding.
I walk with my girl who wears a gray blouse.
Caught a bus to the town. Ah. Lights round the market.